Tevez sta solo, Tevez all'interno dell'area, fa fuori tutti, Tevez, si apre la porta, Tevez, gol, da dietro, Pirlo dentro, gol.
Ciao Juventini, welcome back to the All Juve Cast channel, of course, where it's all Juve all the time. We're coming off the Derby Della Mole victory 1-0 against Torino, and we got Omer, and we've got Crimson Chin Lucci. Lou, how is the going? Omer and I obviously spoke yesterday and whatnot, but we haven't seen Lou for a bit. How's it going, man?
Dude, everything's good. Life's been busy. A good distraction from the current Juventus debacle, although we did get a win yesterday. So, I'm a happy man.
That's good. That's all that counts. Is that you're doing well, you're happy. That's the main thing. The victory we're going to get into against Torino. We're going to get some thoughts. We're going to say hi to some in the live chat here. Michael Razzo coming in here. Ciao Juventini. Vito, good morning, fellas. Jeremiah, guys, really hope Max and the players build on this win. Want Fagioli and Sule to start in place of Quadrado and McKennie next game. We are specifically going to talk about something I noticed I want to bring up, and it's in regards to the young players and what happened yesterday. So we're definitely going to get into that. And Jeremiah was the first call-in guest at halftime of the watch along and did a fantastic job. So big props to Jeremiah. And then of course there was Iman as well, who was the second. So we're going to look to build off that. We're not at the point where we think we're going to do it on podcast episodes, but we might actually start running some call-in sessions, and it might just be me solo and you guys get an open platform to come in and share your thoughts. But it's good stuff, and I'm happy and excited to get all of you way more involved. All right. Now, quick bit of business before we get to the match, fellas. Anyone that's tuning in on your audio outlets, get over to YouTube, okay? Subscribe to the channel. That's where you get the daily update videos, okay? And all the extra stuff, the match day lives, the watch alongs, okay? So make sure you head over and subscribe. Lou hasn't been here for a bit, but every time he's here, I make sure that we show some love for the incredible amount of work. These two guys, Omer and Lou, are pretty much the ones that spearhead the news from the Twitter feed. So you guys are massive, and especially Lou. So massive props and credit to you. So thank you for everything you do on that front, Lou. Now,
I'm here just to make your 60-second news videos just miserable. That's
this week was a tough one. Holy smokes. What was that? Thursday or Friday? There was so much news. And now obviously with the 60-second news things on TikTok and Instagram or whatnot. Yeah, that one was interesting. I just remember waking up and just checking the notifications like, oh my God, what's happening today? That was funny.
My Twitter app crashed on Thursday. That's how many reports came out. So,
oh man, unbelievable. Now, Jeremiah, thanks guys. Great experience on live call-ins. It's awesome. We look forward to many more. Now, we've got one more comment before we get to this game. Michael Razzo, looks like the players do hate Allegri. I don't mind because it looks like it's bringing the players closer together. So that's an interesting way to look at it, is everybody's shared frustrations and Max bringing and uniting the players together. So we're going to get into it. And then Moise Kean. We'll talk about Moise Kean too. So guys, the game leading up to it, obviously Omer and I were doing the match day live. So we'll get maybe a little bit of news headlines here before we get lineups, everything like that. Basically, as far as news today, there's not a whole lot going on. Pogba will resume team training starting next week. We've got fingers crossed still for Chiesa that the Empoli match is where he can get some minutes. The retreat is over after the result yesterday. Not only that, but he gave the team, Max gave the team the day off today. Does anybody feel like maybe that's a little bit much? Like, I mean, it wasn't, okay, end the retreat, but go back to work. Like, we still got work to do.
I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, we still got work to do based on
Yeah.
this performance. Like, I mean, let's not get crazy here. But anyways, thought that was funny. Bremer. So Bremer obviously is one we're gonna all have eyes on. Evaluations will happen today. We've been getting mixed reports. One was saying that the initial thoughts were not very good. And then today I heard the opposite, that they feel pretty confident that they got him out just in time before making it pretty bad. So we wait for evaluations regardless. So we have to just wait and see. Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same as Vito here. Day off already. We'll see. So lineups: Chesney. We had Danilo, Bremer, Sandro making up your three center backs. Quadrado, McKennie, Locatelli, Rabiot, and Kostic across the middle, with Keane and Vlahovic up top. Omer and I gave our thoughts on the roster. I mean, I would have liked to see just maybe one variation in the middle, but outside of that, there were a lot of shouts. Hey, we have center backs. You've got Danilo and Sandro on both sides of Bremer. Like, why not use a Gatti? I want to get Lou's thoughts on this lineup as we headed into this match.
For me, I was looking for maybe some sort of change, like a big call, something that, we weren't expecting, not the usual. And as good as Milik's been, I thought that, playing Keane, who's not very good or hasn't been very good, was a big call. It showed, hey, maybe I have an idea here. Keane's a little bit more dynamic and plays a little bit as a center forward. So that was interesting. Dropping Bonucci was a big call. I think that just, while I would like to see Gatti or even like a Rugatti playing that back three, I think Allegri just went with, all right, what's my safest bet? And that's kind of what he went with. The midfield, I was okay with it. I mean, obviously, we all know my thoughts on number 25, but, I can live with it. I just thought that McKennie in there, I know he's been unpopular due to his form. You just need someone that could give you something offensively in that midfield, and he's really the only guy who has that capability. So I didn't have too much complaints about the lineup. Was happy to see a 3-5-2, and dropping Bonucci, your captain in a derby, is a big call. So
yeah, and I kind of said that in the watch along. I said, if there's ever been kind of like that sign of the times or kind of where we're at right now, I don't think there's a bigger one than a Derby Della Mole and Juve benching their captain.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of really shows you where we're at the moment, right? It's a sign. It's a sign of where we're at. Omer?
Yeah, I kind of hope they bench the other captain, the one who was actually on the field.
Yeah.
But it's sort of a big call, but I'm fine with it. Like, Bonucci hasn't been anywhere near what you come to expect from him, especially this season, but it also started last season. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a sign of things to come. Maybe Bonucci is not in the plans, like Chiellini wasn't the starter and still was the main captain for a long time. Maybe Bonucci is taking the same route.
I mean, it could also be one of those things where, like, we talk about this a lot, about lacking leadership. Bonucci, whether we like it or not, is the captain, right? But, Bonucci is older, right? I think he's 35, 36. So who is next in line? Who's that next guy? Maybe this is Allegri being like, hey, to the squad, like, our captain's not going to be here forever. Like, who can step up in that role? It's kind of like, obviously the Derby is a big call to do that, but it's kind of like, what's these next guys, the Danilos, the Chesneys, that next group of veterans? Like, all right, it's yours. Like, what can you do? Maybe it's like a little, like you said, sign of the times, like a little bit of a transition, see what I got here.
It's one of those things. This is the reason why usually, and every time I say it, you get those people out there now that just say it's just an armband. You're just wearing an armband. Nobody cares about who the captain is. But I don't buy that. And Quadrado wearing the armband, like, okay, you've got the caps, but doesn't mean you're the captain. He doesn't lead us on the pitch, and his play is anything but leading by example. So for me, it is a big deal, and it needs to be the right guy. And Bonucci, obviously he's got history. He's part of one of the best defenses we've, ever seen, whatnot. But again, at the current moment in time, like, it's that next step, and it's ushering that next wave, and who takes it, whatnot. To be honest, this is just me, but the guy that played like a captain was probably Danilo, if I'm being
I agree.
100% honest. Um, Danilo played like a captain for me. And as much as people don't like it and they lose their mind with whatever he says in his post-game interviews, and they just, because he's not of the quality that everybody wants. But the thing is, the one thing nobody, absolutely nobody can take away from Danilo is the fact that he gives you 110% of everything like he is made of every time he's on the pitch, whether he's to the quality we want or not. And I'm saying this like the rest of the players, how many other players can you say throughout this period of time have given 110% of what they have and what they are made of? Nobody has done it. Nobody's come even close to as consistent as Danilo has with giving everything they have to the cause. And people just continue because he's not to the quality that they want. But I'm telling you, this team would be in a hell of a lot better shape if we had the effort and work rate and determination and that mindset consistently. We would already be in a better place. And we're going to get to that in the game yesterday because we had that. But then you see the shortcomings of where I feel the system and gameplay come into it. But what do you guys feel about that and the captaincy and Danilo and stuff? Like,
just want to say, the captaincy. Sorry to cut Omar off if you were going to say something, but on the captaincy, it is important for Juventus. I mean, look down through history. You go all the way back to Antonio Conte. This is a big person in Juventus history. Was captain. Del Piero, captain. Buffon, captain. Chiellini, captain. These aren't just average players. These are great players in the history of Italian football. These are icons and legends for the club. So the captaincy, it does mean something at Juventus. It is a big kind of shoes to fill, right? And it's important. Those guys are, examples for the club to live by, right? So it is important to have your captain. On Danilo, whatever you say about him as a footballer, when we have shocking losses, Monza, Maccabi, who's the guy who faces the music? It's always Danilo. Danilo's always the first one on that podium, doing the difficult thing, which is apologize to the fans, speak after a loss like that for your squad. That is a captain to me. And I think that, you hear it a little bit in some of the interviews that some of the players will say, hey, if I'm playing in front of him, he's telling me I got your back, things like that. That is leadership, and obviously, whether you think Danilo is the world's best right back or not, for the current phase, this moment, that's the best you have. Right. Yeah. So you need to make do with the leadership you have. And then as you go forward, build off of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Omer, anything to add?
Yeah, I think captaincy leadership as a whole is not that straightforward. Like there are other types of leaders and you got to choose your one based on the criteria you want for the team. Now, when they had the group hug at the end of the game, it was Bonucci who stood in the middle, and I don't know what he said, but he did talk. And we saw him on the documentary, The All or Nothing, the way he behaves behind and how miles different it was from how Chiellini acts as a captain. I don't like the Bonucci type of guy, and captains don't have to be all the same. Del Piero was nothing like Conte in terms of personality, and Conte was nothing like Vialli in terms of personality. Conte wasn't considered, one of the best in the world. He's in the as midfielders go in the 90s, but he did have what you were looking for and needing at that specific moment. But it's different times of football. Everyone had that type of captain back then. And I read some interesting interview with John Terry about what he had to go through to become a Chelsea starter and what it is now today. And the game has shifted a lot. I don't think Bonucci is the type of captain Juve needs right now. Danilo looks like a much more, let's say, friendly guy. I think the team likes him more. Bonucci is the guy you hate but do what he says. Danilo is the guy you do what he says because you respect him and you don't want to fail him. Same as Buffon. No one wants to fail Buffon. No defender, no attacker, and you could see it affecting the players. He's infectious in his attitude. Bonucci is, and that's why I think he's not the right guy, and Danilo is miles above him.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. And I'm sure we could potentially get back into it as we get later on and whatnot. But let's go over highlights of the match. We'll talk about the match itself, and then we'll get to the aftermath and everything like it. So basically, game fires away. We got Torino with the earliest chance, and that was Radonjic there, but with a shot that ends up going wide. Then we get some pressure from Juve. I thought the first half was pretty good. It was a little bit back and forth and whatnot. And Juve hits a decent little wave. Quadrado cutting off a pass, finds Keane, who finds Vlahovic, who then makes a nice sharp cut in the area. But Milinkovic-Savic comes out very, very quickly, makes himself big, stops Vlahovic there. We maintain the possession. It ends up finding Locatelli, who hammers it. And it was starting to swerve, but not enough to fool Savic, who makes the save. And then we still maintain the pressure. Rabiot ends up chesting this thing into a volley that started to swerve as well, but not enough to fool Savic. So the keeper coming up big there for Torino, and a good wave there from Juventus. We kind of wrap up the half with Quadrado getting another opportunity to cut in. Weston McKennie way out on the right flank. He had him there. Quad used him as a decoy, cuts in, takes a left-footed shot, but not super threatening and goes wide. We kind of end halftime there. Juve with 52% possession. Both teams had 5 attempts, but Juve had 4 on target and the only big chance of the half, and that fell to Vlahovic. I've been saying on Vlahovic, he gets quite a few opportunities that I expect a big guy like him to bury, especially if you're going to be the main 9. This one, I gave him a little bit of slack because Savic got out so fast. Like, he got out so fast, and there was little time when Vlahovic made that cut to either decide, hey, I'm poking it forward to try and go it around this keeper, or I'm going to try and hit my spot. And he tried, and he barely got his wrist or something like that. So is what it is. But the halftime, I thought I was okay with the half. I thought it was good effort, good work rate. I thought we were playing solid. I just, again, we came out with the majority of the opportunities on target, the only one big chance. We rendered Torino pretty toothless for that first half, so I was okay with it. For me, eyes were going to be on the second half. Were we going to have a drop-off? Were we going to fall flat on our face? Because that's what we've seen a lot of Juve. One good half of football. What were we going to do in the second? So I was okay with the first half of football. Guys, your thoughts on the first half? Omar, you can kick us off on this, and we'll get to Lou.
You covered most of it. We didn't have any chances up until what was the 33rd minute, and then we had like 3 in less than a minute.
Yeah.
Was the Locatelli bouncing shot in the first half or the second half?
That's the second half.
Second half. Okay. I gotta give credit to Milinkovic-Savic. The guy is huge. When he came out to Vlahovic, he closes, almost everything. It's almost impossible to get by him because he's really a massive dude. And so he did good work there. It's not like Vlahovic wasn't good enough. I like the turn, freeing himself up. A different keeper might not have stopped it. The rest felt pretty drab for me, the rest of the half, but we weren't as bad as we were in the past few games. I don't know, maybe Torino are not that good. Maybe they're missing a striker and they didn't have any opportunities, but I felt it could get better. Like, we need to do a bit more and push them a bit harder because they're really toothless.
Yeah. Lou, first half?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with kind of what Omar was saying. I think Milinkovic-Savic, credit to him, kept that 0-0. The first 20 to 25 minutes was rough. And from both sides, a lot of kicking each other, a lot of sloppy passes from Juventus, kind of those things where you're like scratching your head, like, how could they do that? But what I was really impressed with was the energy never dipped off. It looked like after those first 25, the team as a whole, and I think unity is a big thing we'll talk about with this match, kept pushing, eventually started creating chances and grew into that half. So, going to halftime, they had momentum. And, while I was unhappy it ended 0-0, at half, I can't really complain about the first half too much. I thought I was impressed with how Juventus kind of grew into that. That's something we don't really see from them, especially this year.
Yeah. So, yeah, guys, great coverage first half. You're right. Omar hit the nail on the head. That was like Lou was saying too. KG at the start, not a bunch, and then Juve. Yeah, it was like 28 minutes before no attempts for Juve at that point, and then all of a sudden it just switched on. Right. So again, second half, what was going to come? What kind of Juve we're going to see second half? Vlahovic finds Kostic. His cross in is cleared by Torino, unfortunately. So yeah, we're trying to get it in. Sorry, Kostic cross, trying to find Vlahovic, getting cut off. There was a lot of crosses that continue to get cut off of Kostic. There are opportunities. I think he can hit it on the one time, and sometimes he doesn't. It's funny enough that on one of these instances we're going to talk about is the next one. A great through ball from, I believe it was Quadrado, that ended up finding himself on the left side for Kostic. It's deep on the byline, and I'm screaming on the watch along, like, one time this thing, like, cross it in quick. He stops it up, but he does find the trailing run. It was Vlahovic that dropped back as the trailer. Vlahovic gets it all wrong, and it just dribbles across the area, gets cleared out, and Locatelli hits a beautiful volley, and he hammers this thing into the ground. It's bouncing up. I'm like, this is in. And Milinkovic-Savic with another, forced to make another really, really good stop. And about I don't even know, 6 inches further left, and that's in the net from Locatelli. We will talk about Locatelli after once we get through the rest of the highlights. But yeah, another good stop by Savic there. Then you have at the other end, Torino in the second half, I thought was starting to create us a little bit of issues. And then Vlasic ends up finding some space where our defense seemed to just be way too dropped off, and we were just allowing them space at the top of the area. And I was like, well, you got to close that down, boys. And we started to do that quite a bit. And Vlasic ends up getting an opportunity. It's stopped by Tech rather easily, thankfully. Then you have Lazzaro, who started to give Quadrado some serious issues on the left side, and he beats him down low once. His cross in ends up hitting Danilo, deflecting short side, and Tech had to be sharp on that one. Fortunate we didn't come away being punished. Then you get a fast break for Juventus. Kostic, he finds Moise Kean, and Kean literally pops this thing straight ahead of him when he's not even running in line with goal. For me, you've got to know where the number one thing for anybody playing as a striker, you need to know where target is. And that one, if he's right-footed, which he is, and he can't seem to direct it that way, then you have to have the wherewithal to stop it right-footed, hit it left or something. But you can't just slash at it for the sake of slashing at it. Like, that was just a frustrating one. And Kostic, yeah, he went off. And then you saw Vlahovic run over, put his arm around Keane, and just give the thumbs up to Kostic and say, hey, it's cool, let's move on, right? And I thought that was big of Vlahovic. And a different change in attitude from Vlahovic in this game, but we'll talk about that after the match too. But guys, Keane's got to know where target is. It's one job.
I mean, that's one of those where you take your phone and throw it through the TV kind of misses, you know, you just like,
oh,
what I had to say when he missed that, it should not be repeated on YouTube for any kids that are watching. But
oh man, that was a frustrating one. I felt Kostic's pain on that one, but again, the positive was seeing Vlahovic pick his teammate up, where I think in games prior, he probably wouldn't have done that. If I'm just speculation, of course, but I don't think in the matches leading up to it, I think it would have been a different reaction from those involved. So again, unfortunate for Keane, but some positive out of it, right? Then you have Kostic with a cross in, Vlahovic finding space, heads it, and another big save by Savic, okay? Diving to stop this header. It goes out for a corner kick on the watch along. I literally say, this is it, everybody, okay? I hit the tune. We get the crowd chants going. So this is where Juve is going to score. Danilo gets to it, okay, heads it back post, and Vlahovic storms in there and hammers this thing in there, okay? 1-0 Juve. The rest of the match, Juve essentially survives, okay? We clean it up. It's rather clean in maintaining this. I did think Juve was playing with fire towards the end because I was saying, let's get some fresher legs. We only saw a couple changes, and that was Bremer being changed due to injury. Okay, that part was unfortunate. Bonucci coming in, and then you didn't see another one till later on when Keane gets substituted for Milik, and then you don't get another one until 90th minute, which was Paredes. And the whole time from about 65 minutes on, you could really see the legs of the midfielders being tested. And McKennie, I thought, was prime candidate for getting a substitution. Even Cuadrado, to be honest. But Cuadrado, I will say this, as frustrating as he was offensively for me, defensively, he faced every wave Torino had because they literally were running at him through Radonjic, through Lazzaro, and then when Camor come in, they were all running down Cuadrado's side, and he did well and held up his end defensively. But offensively, I cannot defend the struggles that continue there. But defensively, at least he was sound. I thought Max played with fire for a bit there, but all in all, Torino did have a better second half. Juve got the job done. Ultimately, that's all we needed. This one, you got to get this win and then build off of that. What are the positives we take out of it? Let's get your guys' overview on the whole match, and then we'll get into the aftermath, okay? So wrap up full game, your thoughts, positives, anything to build off and move forward with. Luke, kick us off on this one.
So I think the big theme with this match for me is unity, and I think that, when you watch this performance, it was a lot of team spirit. It's not the greatest performance. It's not a world beating one, but it is the Derby. You did get your 3 points. And I think that, like we were saying in the first half, you could see a little bit of a step forward towards the end of the first half. Juventus came out in the second half, despite the injury to Bremer, and kept playing with that spirit, that mentality. They got, Kostic more involved. I thought the flanks in the second half, particularly, really well involved. They were getting crosses in, they're creating chances. Just the little things I thought, and this is something I think we'll eventually touch on, but, kind of the spirit of the players like Vlahovic stepping up, kind of urging his teammates on, not dropping his head when he misses chances. This was a very patient Juventus who, when they saw their chance, got it, and really fought for it. And to me, that's really important because we haven't seen that very much this year. So, unity is kind of the big one going forward. And for what you want to say about Max and the tactics, were they perfect? No, but to be fair, I do think he got most of this one right. I think like the setup and the lineup was the right idea. Maybe the execution wasn't fully there, but I don't think we can expect too much for only 2 days since Maccabi, so
yeah, that's and we're gonna get into tactics and everything like that, but unity is big, and I think we all saw a team that was at least united for this one. It'll be interesting to see if we can carry forth in that manner, and if the attitude stays the same, and if it changes with results too, right? Because we got to be ready for that. Omer, your overview on this match before we get into all the aftermath.
Yeah, you always say a tale of two halves. Well, not in this case. Usually Juve, when teams pick it up a notch in the second half, Juve crumble, sit back, and kind of ends their game. This time, both teams picked it up. In the second half, it was a better game, more open game, and Juve didn't crumble, didn't fall back. They stuck to their guns and to their plan, and that's refreshing to see. Some frustrations, the main one with the subs. I mean, come on, these guys are playing every 3 days, just landed, went into Retiro, give them a bit of a rest. Like, at the expense of not conceding. I'm not saying switch all the front line to look for more goals, but the 89th minute to bring in the first midfielder, that's just, I don't know. I was super angry with that during the game. Cuadrado frustrating. The rest, there are some positives. I think Sandro was good as the outside CB on the left, better than he is as a fullback. And Danilo was fine. Even Bonucci did well when he came on. And the midfield, okay, we'll discuss it later maybe. But overall, it wasn't bad. It wasn't glamorous, but a derby win is a derby win, and I'll always take it no matter what the score is.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, everybody, let's take the time to like the video while you're here, okay? And of course, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. But let's get to man of the match. We're going to get everyone's man of the match, and we're going to talk a little bit about the performance of players in this one. And this will, I'm sure, segue perfectly into the next phase of the aftermath. But real quick, we're going to get to man of the match. And Omar, who is your man of the match in this one?
Milinkovic-Savic. Obviously. No,
Swear.
I mean, if you count both teams, yeah, he's the reason Juve didn't score 3 goals. But for Juve, I'd give it to Kostic.
Kostic.
My
Okay.
answer.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think he's done his job. He whipped in tons of crosses, created opportunities, and what we were missing basically. And I was happy with his performance. He never stopped running, drove back to defense, went back up. He's pretty fast, faster than I thought he was watching Frankfurt, but he had a good game. He had a really good game.
Yeah.
For the sake
Lou,
of being different, I'm picking Vlahovic because
you're
Omar took my answer.
Vlahovic.
Yeah.
All Serbians.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest here. I thought Vlahovic was pretty frustrating for me in the first half from his touch and his it looked like he was fighting the ball for much of that game. His attitude and stuff was great throughout it all and stuff, but I'm not gonna lie, there was quite a bit of that match where Keane was, believe it or not, like for me, just watching that thing, he was working just as hard of it as Vlahovic, and he was doing quite well. I mean, Vlahovic's one opportunity clear cut comes from Keane, hitting the space. The second Cuadrado intercepts that pass, and then finding Vlahovic there. Like Keane is on a couple good cameos coming into that one, and then he was working really, really hard yesterday, and he did well. The second that he missed that opportunity, though, because there was a point leading up to that where I'm like, if you're going to make a change, I go, if you're bringing Milik in, I go, I don't know. For me, Vlahovic was fighting the ball for much of that game. And even if we look at leading up to some of these other opportunities, Kostic, when he stops on that cross, he ends up slotting it. It's rolling on the carpet, and Vlahovic doesn't even connect with it. Okay. Mm-hmm. He totally flubs that thing. If that thing gets cleared out completely, Locatelli ends up getting to it and volleying it in. But if we just clear that out, I'm like, man, I don't know. Vlahovic had a lot of frustrations for me, although he ultimately got us over the line. Danilo, for me, man of the match, because it was steady the whole game through. Yeah, I think I would go with Danilo. Vlahovic, though, that goal at the end, and then all the positives we talked about, even through the struggles, his attitude never changed. So that's why, yeah, Vlahovic or Danilo are the two for me. But I saw struggles throughout with Vlahovic that leads me to go to Danilo. Great result anyways. We needed to get the win. I mean, Jesus, if we would have topped onto the mess right now, a Derby Della Mole loss, my God. So we got the victory. It's all good. Now, man of the match is out of the way. Before we get to other player performances outside of the guys we just spoke about, AJC tweet of the match. We got to talk about the AJC tweet of the match, okay? And we've got a new winner. And usually sometimes there's, guys that you can pull in, and we have to put it to vote here. It was unanimous, I think, this particular match, right, Lou? Like, this was unanimous.
Yeah, it's an easy one.
It's an easy one for AJC tweet of the match this game around, and it's right here, coming from none other than Tony, Mr. Art Vandalay. Keane with a more aggressive first touch than a boy at prom. And there you have it, folks. That is your AJC tweet of the match for the Derby Della Mole. That was good laughs right there. So yeah, credit to Tony there, and we'll throw that out on Twitter as well. I thought I had a good laugh over that one. That was gold.
I think multiple people sent that into our group message and was like, this is the tweet of the match, like at different times throughout the day.
Oh yeah. That was good laughs. Now let's get to outside performances. Locatelli continues to get a lot of flack, social media, whatnot, from Juventini. I want to get both of your thoughts on Locatelli's match and how you viewed him in it and how he did. So, who wants to kick us off on Locatelli's performance? Omar,
Go
fire
ahead,
away.
one more.
I think he grew into the match. Like he looked very, let's say, not trusting himself enough to try things, just going for the easy option most of the time. When he did try it, then it was either too far or too close. But as soon as he got that few shots on target from outside the area, his confidence grew and he looked more comfortable, and suddenly he was in the right positions all the time, first to almost all of the rebounds from the area. So by the end of the match, I'd call that a good performance. Like the first 30 minutes weren't fine, and then he picked it up. So no issues. Like compared to the last games he had, this was a far better one.
There's obviously the rumors swirling around that Locatelli and McKennie, could be moving away and the club could use them to get money. Omar, sell or keep Locatelli?
Keep 100%.
All right. Lou, your evaluation of Locatelli in that match, and keep or sell?
Well, to start with your first question, in the match, I thought Locatelli had a good game. Not like he wasn't mad of the match, but he wasn't bad. He wasn't as bad as he has been at times for this season. I think that Juventini last year got this really crazy idea that Locatelli is like a number 8 or a number 6. Like he's going to do what Khedira used to do for us, which is play box to box, get into the box and score a lot of goals. And I think it's because of the Euro with Switzerland. That has never been Locatelli's game. We've discussed this. He's more of a double pivot. He's good at cleaning things up. He'll be like that midfielder that's first in line to the defense to protect you. He likes to make those trailing runs. We saw a couple of them where he's like at the edge of the box. He's getting shots on goal. That's what Locatelli does really good. He's good with the ball at his feet. And he's good at switching the play, but he's not going to like be Andrea Pirlo or Sami Khedira when he was with us. I think that Juventini associated that because they saw the Euro and they were like, yeah, one off, like he could play Mezzala. It's like, that's not him. So, to kind of come around, I would keep Locatelli. I think that he will get better as the season goes on. I think, last year he came off an injury. We reported before that he's not 100% healthy. I think that's why Allegri sat him the first time, whether that's true or not. From the reports that we reported, I think it is true that he was dealing with something. I just think that, Allegri has, he's done a lot wrong, but I think he's been kind of smart with Locatelli, which is, keep him to the side a little bit, let him, recover mentally. And I thought he played pretty well. And I would keep him.
He's also about to become a father, so congratulations to Emmanuel Locatelli out there. Okay, that's fantastic news for him, and maybe something that's been on his mind or whatnot. But listen, for me, Locatelli, he had a good game, and I'm gonna use this to start to get into my next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is separating the system struggles from the player struggles. Okay. So there's no doubt that there's shortcomings in players like Quadrado and McKennie and whatnot, but not all of it is on the players. And when we talk about Locatelli, I specifically say, is he capable of switching field quick, making long range passes and whatnot? Yeah. And he actually did several times in this match yesterday, springing Kostic for opportunities that we were getting. That crazy header that led to the corner kick, that switch field came from Locatelli that found Kostic out wide there and did that. So he's capable of doing all this. But if your system doesn't create the opportunities for those players to make those passes and do that, it's not going to amount to much. You can put whoever you want in all these positions. But if there's people not making the runs, if there's people not attacking the space, and you don't know how you're going to create those, it really doesn't matter. Now I'm going to get into everything else. As far as Locatelli, for me, he had a good game. He had a really good game. He He finishes with the most touches out of the midfield, as he should, being that 68 touches. His passing percentage in the first half, he had quite a few errant passes. But again, the first 25 minutes to 30 minutes of this game were cagey. And that's where a lot of his missed passes were. It was just sloppy and cagey from both teams. And it was like a dogfight. And that's usually what happens in these for a good session before it can kind of open up. But as far as shots on target, he took 2 shots. They were both on target. And this is another thing that can't be understated. We need our midfielders, when they're in those areas, to shoot the damn ball. Stop trying to get cute with it. Stop worrying about feeding Vlahovic and doing all this. If you have a line of sight to goal, have a hit. Rabiot did that. Locatelli did it on a couple scenarios. That's positive. Kostic, I think, gets in opportunities to do that, and he's hesitant. Shoot the ball. Shoot the ball. I'll never give somebody flack for shooting the ball unless they're like 35 out or something and they're just like seeing their names in the stars or something. It's like, slow down.
The occasional Bonucci 40-yard rocket that he attempts once a year.
Ground duels, he was 3 out of 5, and aerial duels, he was 3 for 3. Locatelli had a good game. Some vital interceptions, as he made 2 interceptions that were deep in our area that were huge as well. He had a good game. But now let's get into systems and stuff, because again, Cuadrado, I was saying defensively did his job. Offensively, everybody's like, but the errant passes, the blind passes. This is where I'm going to get into system, okay? Weston McKennie, our third midfielder out of the bunch with Rabiot and Locatelli, touches the ball 31 times in 90 minutes. Our third central midfielder, everybody, touches the ball 31 times. That's not good enough. If you look at him positionally, and this happened to everybody, and it's happened all season, and I continue to talk about it. Positionally, we are a mess. And when you get to McKennie and whatnot, none of it makes sense. Yesterday, I saw him way out left all of a sudden, randomly. And sometimes I saw Locatelli behind our defenders. I saw Locatelli on the left flank with Sandro in the center of the pitch. And I'm like, keep it simple. Get you guys into your positions and work from that. Every time Cuadrado gets the ball on the right flank and you can take Cuadrado out of there, enter somebody else into that position, they will not have an outlet because for whatever reason, McKennie explodes up the field and we have no option there to hit. Our midfielders barely even connect with one another in passes or schemes. We are so one-dimensional on the flanks. And McKennie, I can't see how a player would do this on his own if a coach shut that down. But to not offer an outlet for your flank makes no sense. You get your position there, your central midfielder that plays that right side should be there to be an option so that when Cuadrado gets a ball, he can either, okay, I'm going to put it up ahead to our forwards, or I'm going to go inside to McKennie, or I'm going to go back to my defender, or beyond that to the keeper. He never has anything directly inside to the center unless he's got a line to Locatelli or Paredes, and it's just not good enough. Max, there's no way a coaching staff, when they do their video reviews, cannot see that. And I've been pointing it out forever. We just use those side guys and they just abandon our regista, whoever it is, Paredes, Locatelli. Like, our midfield does not play as a unit. And that's a big, big problem. And it does affect the other players as well. Do you guys notice that? What are your thoughts on that and everything? So there are player struggles. Don't get me wrong. McKennie has a lot of faults. But systematically, we are not helping our players that are struggling.
Yeah, I don't see us using the dead space. I look at the match a lot of times, and let's say, for example, when Kostic is on the left, and everyone run into the area, but there's a huge gap, huge dead space outside of the area where no one is occupying. And someone should be there. Someone should be an option. And it's not only when we attack, we just have a lot of dead space in midfield because Luca drops back and the two other guys run forward. Now, if I take, for example, Conte, the way he played with Juve, he used the triangle system. Every player who had the ball had two options to his left and to his right to pass the ball, and they used the dead space. And that's how you progress with the ball and take the other team out of position. And if you spot an opportunity of someone running into the area, use it. But most of the time, I see guys with no option but to pass it back and start over.
Yeah.
And that's a system problem. That's a systematic problem, which, like you said, I don't get why Allegri and his coaching staff don't notice that. And, scream at players from the bench, get into that position.
Yeah.
Get to the position where no one is standing. It's weird to me. It's a system problem that should be addressed a long time ago, actually.
Yeah. And this is why I say, I understand these guys are playing poorly. Like when you're picking Quadrado, you're picking McKennie and whatnot, but we're not doing them any favors whatsoever. And I fail to believe that if you told McKennie, hey, I need you in this spot to be this option, that he would still just run away and bomb up the field. I fail to believe that. Lou, your thoughts on this system thing?
Yeah, I think, Omar, you touched on a really good point. In our 10-year run, our 9-year run where we won the Scudetto, and we had Conte starting and Allegri after that, right? You see two different characteristics of coaches, right? Conte is kind of your, hey, we're operating in triangles. Every player has a duty. When we're taking the ball forward, the left and right side midfielder making runs into the box, right? They're supporting your strikers. Your guy in the middle is distributing this. The flanks are doing this. It's very down to a T. Allegri is that type of manager, maybe a little bit like Carlo Ancelotti, where it's like you give him an 80% completed squad and he kind of tinkers with it a little bit. He goes, hey, guys, this is the game plan. We're going to do this. You execute it, right? And the players go out and do that. The problem with this team is we don't have experienced players like we did in the past that could, you could be like, hey, this is the game plan, go and do this, and they will understand it and execute it. We have, I don't want to say a lack of intelligence, but we just have younger, more inexperienced players that maybe lack that higher IQ, that need a little bit more of that Conte, where McKinney's example probably needs a little bit more direction, which is, hey, when we're counterattacking, don't blaze all the way up. Kind of hold up a little bit. Be that link between the strikers and the flanks, and the deeper midfielders like Rabiot and Locatelli. I think that they need that kind of stricter discipline, which is, hey, when I have the ball, I'm doing this, or when we're defending, we're doing this, right? When we counterattack, you need to make these runs. And I know there will be some people that go, well, players should know how to do that. You're right, but there also is kind of a lesson here. There's a curve, which is, hey, I've never operated in this system, or I'm new to this club. How do I integrate? How do I adapt? And I think that there's just not that kind of specific, hey, when I have the ball, you need to be doing this, or these are the patterns of play we need, down to a T. I just think that, and I don't even think it's the fact that Max is a bad coach. I just think that that's just not what he is good at doing. That's never kind of been his characteristic. And I think that that's where the fault and kind of disconnect is a little bit here. And I think that's also why the system looks the way it is. It's just that they need kind of that more reinforcement, which is, hey, this is how the system works. This is how it operates. How do we execute in certain phases of the game? If that makes sense. I know it's a lot, but.
Yeah, I want to add that maybe, for all his faults, Khedira was a very smart guy, and he came in, as a finished product. He was with Real Madrid and with Germany, and he had high IQ. And although he wasn't quick or fast or a good dribbler or anything, he always find himself inside dead space with no one around him, inside the area, no one around him. And that's high football IQ. Maybe that's something you can teach and just you're born with it. Pjanic also was good for that role because he came from Roma and he did the exact same thing. But now you have to teach these guys. These are young fellows who haven't played in that system, and you need to guide them, which I don't think Max does at this moment. He just expects them to understand how to play.
I think like a really good example that you just kind of mentioned, Omar, is that Khedira naturally, because of his age and his experience, naturally understood when you're playing as a 6, right? Because he had done it for Germany at the World Cup. in the build up to that, you have to make those trailing runs in the box. Like you are, another line of the attack, that those runs in between the winger and the striker, in between, the wing back and the striker. Like he kind of just naturally understood that. Whereas maybe Rabiot until this season didn't naturally understand that, I need to make that run. And we saw in the Maccabi game, he made that run, which is that kind of run into the box to get the ball to have a shot on target. I think McKinney needs to understand that. Like, I think that he almost needs a coach to be like, hey, you need to naturally do this. Like you need to, when that comes, there's specific things that I think a coach needs to be like, hey, when the ball's doing this, you need to show for that. I don't think McKinney has that yet. And I think he's only 23, 24, 24. That's kind of like a development thing that, maybe Pirlo might have did a little bit more because he was used to young players. He's brought in to be with youth. That maybe Allegri, because he's kind of a guy that you hand experienced players to, doesn't know how to do that, or never really has done that. And I think where the disconnect is.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at it, and again, this isn't something it's not even necessarily a McKinney problem, because it happens regardless of who we have in there. Positionally, this team is just, and they've been doing this from the get-go. And I called it when we were in LA watching that session. I said, look what they're doing with their mids. And the interesting thing is, Juve trains on a shortened pitch. They were anyways the whole time they were in LA, and their whole game plan, when you would watch them work on their buildup, because that's all they did for the session I took in, at least, was Locatelli dropping back. He's being the Regista, but because you're in a shortened field, his Metsalas, they quickly move forward, and then it's worked at the back between the defenders, the fullbacks, and Locatelli, and then the second they have it, they try to break the lines and find one of those guys. What we're seeing now is the same as what they were doing all throughout the season. The problem is when you're working on that on a shortened pitch and then you go to a full pitch, that's why McKinney's bombing way the hell out there. And when we saw Zakaria in there before he took off, he was doing the same thing. Rabiot was doing the same thing. I think yesterday, they were trying to go build more of that base with Rabiot, Locatelli, and give McKinney that freedom and whatnot, but he's not that guy either. So for me, simplify it. Use one of your offensive-minded midfielders like your Miretti, like your Fagioli, and play them ahead of two base midfielders. Still make a three-man midfield, and don't start them from the right side. Play them dead in the friggin' center so that all they have to do is run in a straight line up and back, and then the only time they have to move is to be an option for either your left or your right. Your base midfielders will be able to create triangles from your fullbacks to your center backs to everybody. It will connect everybody and give them options. And it's shocking to me that we haven't tried that for all that we've tried with Max, that he hasn't just been like, I'm going to play a central attacking mid. I'm going to line him up in the middle. I'm going to have two pivots. Rabiot, Locatelli. Paredes, Locatelli. Locatelli is naturally a two-man pivot midfielder. You have the guys now to actually accomplish that. And you also have the guys that can be those attacking mids in Miretti, Fagioli. Once Pogba returns, he could probably do that, to be honest.
I actually prefer him to do that.
I was going to say, I think, and I don't know, this guy, I don't like saying this, but I do think that, in Inception, that's when he goes oh, I'm waiting for Pogba. I think Pogba naturally understands that. Where even if he's lined up in the three, Pogba naturally understands, hey, I'm supposed to be that link between the strikers and the pivot. I think that Max has always been kind of that hybrid coach, right? It's a 3-5-2, but it's not a 3-5-2 fully. It changes as you go, things like that. I think that, Pogba would naturally be able to do that. But I think someone like McKinney, and this is not a knock on him as a player, I just think he needs that more guidance to be like, hey, in this role, yes, it's a 3-5-2, it's a flat three-man midfield, but I expect you to be more involved in the attack, but you need to understand the patterns and the formations and what you specifically do. I think that Locatelli and even Rabiot, God forbid, grasp that a little bit. But McKinney just
Never
doesn't.
fails.
He needs a little bit more guidance. I think Paredes
Yeah.
understands it a little bit, but McKinney, he just isn't that player yet. There are certain players that need instruction. Like Al, you and I talked in the chat. Like Giaccherini, right, was not a world-beating player, but he understood his instructions, he understood his jobs, and like what to do. Right. I just think that McKinney kind of needs that instruction and that reassurance. Like, hey, this is what you do in this phase of the game, and you play a lot better.
Yeah, and I want to add
that. Go ahead, Omar. Sorry.
Yeah, and I want to add, I think there's also responsibility for that role in Cuadrado. I don't think Cuadrado aids those guys who are playing the right-hand midfield. Like, if I look back at how players perform in 3-5-2 system, in Conte or even in other teams, the understanding between Lichtsteiner and Vidal on the right was phenomenal. They knew exactly when to occupy space, when to run forward, who does what, and what does the other guy do. And Cuadrado is not a quick thinker and is always in his own mind. Like his eyes are either on the ball or forward where he intends to run. It's only when he gets stuck that he looks for other options. So I don't think he's a good partner for the guy who plays basically next to him most of the time, because they should cover for each other. Maybe with a different right winger, it would look a bit different.
Yeah.
An RWB. Hopefully
It's interesting, and we could dissect this thing for hours. I can't help but personally feel that there are a number of guys that I think systematically we could be helping. And when we get to really raking players over the coals, I stop and look big picture. And when I see positional nightmares like we had for sections of yesterday, I just can't help to put it to a bigger picture, and I give them a little bit of flack basically. But there's still moments regardless of that where these players need to do better and whatnot. So they are still having individual failures. Don't get me wrong. And what I'm saying is not saying we need to start McKennie at all costs right now, because that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is part of his failures I do see as to be honest, the coach failing certain players furthermore and not helping them.
I think we're all like kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Just a little bit differently. Like it's not, and like when I was saying about the system stuff, I'm not defending Max's failures because his failures are obvious. I think I'm trying to highlight them a little bit.
Yeah.
You use Keane as an example in this game, right? I think, in that little spurt we had after the international break, one thing was very apparent to me that Vlahovic looks really good, kind of like, God forbid I mention his name because the Dybala fans are going to be in the comments, but kind of off of a number 10, right? Di Maria and him had a good partnership. So he got, who's the next most dynamic striker we have? Unfortunately, that is Keane. And I thought Vlahovic's game, the chances he created worked a little bit better because he had kind of that deeper center forward type player next to him. So I thought from that perspective, there was like a little bit of positive to take away, which is like, hey, we figured out a little bit of the Vlahovic thing. But, that midfield, that is still missing. And, only time will tell if that can be fixed or not. I don't really have high hopes for that, because based on what we've seen the last year and a half. But, you never know. It is a full
Yeah, I think our main problem right now is quick thinkers. Like, our guys don't act fast enough. They need to look to all directions before they make a pass. And I see that from all across the pitch. It's not a specific player, just speed of, passing and stuff and quick thinking. And I might add a bit of trivia. I don't remember if it's Guardiola or some other manager, but there's some manager out there who practices with the team on quick thinking. And how does he do that? He gives each player, like he plays with 11 players, and each one gets a number. And then he screams out the names of two players, and according to their number, you have to pass to the player that their numbers sum up to. Like, let's say McKennie is number 2 and Locatelli is number 5. Then he screams 7. You have to pass it to number 7. He doesn't say the number, but it's not a work about passing. It's a work on quick thinking, calculate for a second and pass it to the right guy. And that's how he made them think faster and act faster.
Yeah.
There's tons of methods out there, but I found that one very interesting, and I see you were struggling with the same thing.
I know we probably have to move topics, but real quick to piggyback off your point, Omar, like kind of what we were saying before, I think that's to the coaching element of this, maybe Allegri kind of naturally expects them to be able to quick think, which is, hey, when I get the ball, I'm releasing this player, right? But, these players might not have that ability. They may need like that stricter coach to be like, hey, when you get the ball here, you're putting this flank in or you're looking for this pass. To kind of get their mind thinking a little bit ahead of the game, right? It's like when I get the ball, what are my first two options? Like you're thinking 2-3 steps ahead. They might need that stricter discipline. And I don't know if Max has that gear or not. Up until now, it doesn't seem like it. Maybe he does. He could still surprise us, but I think that's where the disconnect is. I really do.
Yeah. And that's great stuff to finish up on that topic and whatnot. Yeah, I think that's essentially what I'm kind of saying is I don't think that's there for these guys. And I think a lot of it is freewheeling especially on the ball once we build up out of our end. And yeah, it's anybody's guess if it's going to get better. Now, 1-0 victory, Derby Della Mole. Change. How much do we expect to change? How long will the change last? What do we think we can do? For me, nothing's really changed as far as my opinion on everything. This is one game. The unity and stuff was highlighted. The attitude and effort was there. But one game at a time is what I'm down to this season. Okay, there are a lot that I've said, I've thrown in the towel, said that's it, it's done. I've heard it all. I'm not supporting this team anymore. Look, I'm down to one game at a time. It's up to, I even called a draw yesterday. Said 1-1 draw. Juve, prove me wrong. Prove to me that I'm wrong. Omer called the 1-1 draw. No Knees called 2-1 victory for Juve. He was closest. That hurts me. He was closest on the right prediction. 1-goal victory. Listen, it's up to the guys. It's up to the guys to prove us. And Max has actually said that 3 weeks ago, and he said, look, it's up to us to reinstill this faith from the fans and everything and get that support out of them with the performances. But again, I think Max has shortcomings there that apparently we are all seeing, and it's getting to the players in a more aggressive fashion, I think, than is necessary because, again, there's a lot of examples of we can go all over the place, but there's work to be done. Let's put it that way. This was great in terms of effort, work rate. Omer hit it. No drop off or whatnot, really. I thought Max was really risking things with no changes, no substitutes and whatnot. But what I want to talk about is, does anything change as far as your opinion goes and Max, and should we still be looking at change? Say we go on a run. Say, all of a sudden we're, ripping things up or whatnot and things start to look right. Does your opinion of Max change? Can he change your opinion of him and moving forward? I think we were all at the point where you start with the coach, but can it be changed as of right now?
My opinion, no. I don't think there is a way back. Like we got the most favorable schedule I can ever remember. The schedule is still very good for us, but I don't know. It's been that way since Max's final season, where we saw the same type of play, which is grinding out wins. I don't expect Juve to win every game, like 6-0, but I want to see a convincing performance, and I don't think that's what's on Max's mind anymore. Like he likes grinding out the wins, and the players he has, his system doesn't guarantee that anymore. So we can't bank on that. If he's not going to change, he's a stubborn coach, like all Italian managers. He's just their type of managing style. So I don't see any way he changes my mind. Until the end of the season.
And this was actually Nader's Storm the Barn. I want to remind everybody, I've seen there's a couple others. Get your Storm the Barn, the questions in right now. Okay, we're going to start tackling some of these. Lou, is Max, can he redeem himself?
Bigger picture, no. I think for like maybe the season, like if they get some results up to the World Cup, maybe that earns him a little bit of leeway to the end of the year. But to me, this team it's not going to win anything. And I think once that happens after year two, there'll be no coming back from that. So whether that's right or wrong, I think that, I think the World Cup is that first judge. If they put a bunch of good performances in, maybe he survives that. Maybe he earns that second half. But I think once the summer comes, I think it'll be pretty clear that it's not that. Unless something drastic happens and we surge to the title race and finish in second. But I don't foresee that happening.
So this is, for me, no. And a part of it is, again, what I saw yesterday. And that's, for me, one of the things not really being talked about a lot, but Max hasn't changed whatsoever. He hasn't changed whatsoever. And yesterday, his lack of willingness to play Miretti or get Fagioli in there, even Gatti, he's the same old Max. He doesn't believe in younger players, and Juve wants to put something together where we start bringing in more of those guys and, holding capital value, stop spending on older guys with high salaries and stuff, like adopt a Milan kind of plan. How am I supposed to believe that team wants to do that with Max at the helm? How am I supposed to believe that? This guy is the same guy. He will only and always trust experience. And when we were going through that difficult period, there was a phase through this season where Miretti was our only bright spot. He was our only bright spot. And even if it's a Derby Della Mole, even if you're coming off the loss to Maccabi and whatnot, you've still gone with McKennie in there because for whatever reason you believe in him, but he's given us absolutely nothing this year. He's given us absolutely nothing this year. So Max hasn't changed. So for me, I don't think he can redeem himself, and he kind of proved it to me yesterday by not being able to. He would rather risk it in the way the match was going and seeing that his guys are starting to lose their legs and Torino was turning it on. He would rather risk it than put on the fresh legs, but they're younger. For me, That's wrong. That's wrong. And I'm not into that.
Yeah, and I would like to add that if there's anything that changed a lot from when I was a fan, a younger fan, and these days that people make assumptions very quickly and very fast to judge a player. Rabiot had 2 good games, and suddenly, let's talk about contract renewal. And then he had 1 bad game, and no, we're not talking about it. And I'm kind of trying to hang on to what was in the past, which is no, prove it on the course of at least 1 season, 2 seasons. Like, not every good game justifies high praises. I praise a player for doing that consistently. The name of the game is consistency. For every football player, no matter where he is, no matter who he plays for, consistency gets you titles, gets you to bigger clubs, bigger contract, everything. So Max has done wonderful to take any speck of belief I had in me that he can do it in the past year and couple of months. And I don't know, he had to do something really tremendous to turn that around until the end of the season. I won't judge him by 2-3 good games. I won't change my mind based on that.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's a matter of like when. It's if he, could survive the World Cup, then it's the end of the year. If he can't, then it's the World Cup. But it's a matter of when.
The next one up is from Dells. How far do you think Max can realistically take this team? Do you believe another coach could take the same players further? If not, why? Realistically, I mean, I think if we're realistically speaking, we need so much to happen for Champions League that it's done.
Yeah.
I think if we're being realistic, we would need a lot to happen. And again, it's 1 game at a time. But based on even yesterday's performance, whatnot, I don't think we can even pull the 2 victories we need off, if I'm being honest, because there's still a lot of shortcomings. I mean, Benfica, sure. PSG, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure there, right? But again, we play the games for a reason. So realistically, how far can you take this team right now? It's 1 game after the Retiro, and I don't even believe in the retreat at all. If anything might have happened, maybe the players came together, but I still have doubts that the coach and the team are one. I still have my doubts there. Obviously, we're getting rumors about Bonucci and him and Allegri having a rift. Obviously, Bonucci not starting in the Derby Della Mole there yesterday, and the rumors surfacing. I haven't seen it from any sources that are credible. And also, right now, when Juve's hot like this, everybody wants to get those clicks and everybody wants to get in on it. So I don't put much to that whole Bonucci thing, but you could believe it, couldn't you? You could believe it. So the thing is, I'm not sold that there's still all one, players and coach. I think the players are, but I don't think Max has all the guys fully on board. Do I believe another coach could take these players further? Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. Because I think there are coaches out there that have styles that they believe in and they get their players to believe in it. And I think we have far too many underperforming to say it's the players. That's just me. And that's my answer to these. You guys go ahead. Lou, why don't you start this one?
I think the farthest this team can go, at least this year, is maybe the top 4 and maybe the Coppa Italia. I think that's about it. As far as like another coach, I think that if you get the right manager, the right kind of profile of a manager with, kind of those characteristics we were talking about, I think, like just for example, it doesn't have to be these guys, but like a Conte or Klopp, someone specifically with a specific system and players that fit those systems, I think would help this team a lot. I don't think that necessarily means it would come out and win the league, but I think it'd be more competitive than it has been.
Yeah. Omer, your thoughts on those questions?
I hate making assumptions when our fate is not up to us. So as far as the Champions League go, no matter if we win those 2 games, we still need Maccabi to beat either one of those teams. And when we depend on other teams and their results, then I don't get my hopes up. I like it when we have like, you need to win those 3 games and you're in. That's the situation I like and like making predictions about. As far as the team can go, I don't know. Coppa, we have either Monza or Udinese, which are playing like prime Barca at the moment. And Monza, we already lost to them once. So maybe we can sneak into the semifinals, but I don't see us moving past it. I don't think we're at the level of Milan, Inter, and Napoli. As far as the league goes, there's still a lot of time, and top 4 is not out of reach by any means. I think we can do it. Scudetto, hard for me to believe, but I would love it to be proven wrong and shut me up.
Yeah. And that's where I've gone to. 1 game at a time, prove me wrong. Jeremiah saying he still believes we can qualify for round of 16, top 4 in Serie A, and semi-finals of Coppa. Do you guys still believe? I believe we can get to the semi-finals of the Coppa. From there, be very difficult. Omar mentioned, the current run of form. And again, 1 game at a time. I need this team to change my mind. Right. Top 4, I think Juve can get to top 4 for sure. The Champions League, like I said, we need a lot to happen. Do I still believe? Well, hey, dreaming is free. And if without belief, there's nothing. So yeah, let's get behind the team and see what they can do. Right. But it's up to them to change their mind. Hey, my predictions are going to be changed, and it's going to be up to them to prove it to me each and every game. We kind of answered, where we think realistically we can get to with everything going on right now. Listen, start from there. We highlighted the key things, which was there was a lot of focus, positives in terms of the attitude, the work rate, the effort, and whatnot. I think Max needs to dial it up a little bit more as well. The changes thing that really, for me, was crazy. There was a point where I was just shouting, like, you see changes countless by Torino, Juric there, and you can see our guys visibly tired, and we're just waiting and waiting. And I'm like, Max, man, you've got to do something. Like, you've got to help. The midfield was just dragging their asses, and McKennie especially, and Quadrado's wings just getting blown up, and that's McKennie's side as well. And I'm like, get some fresh legs in there. So, I think Max has to start really dialing things in. I don't know. We keep talking about this, but the things that he always used to get right and were his strengths haven't kind of been there since he's been back. I think we can all kind of agree on that.
Yeah.
He's got to dial it up. But it's nice to see the players united, embracing one another. We get the victory. Let's move on and see what happens. Okay, we've got Empoli. We're starting to get some guys healthy and whatnot. So let's start from there. Guys, any last thoughts before we sign off? Or maybe something we didn't get to that you want to tackle?
Yeah,
Go
I'll
ahead.
just add that there's still no jury out on Bremer's injury. I saw one report from La Repubblica, which is super uncredible. So I won't go with that. His exams are tomorrow, and then we'll know better. But they said he's a doubt for the Benfica match.
Yeah,
We're
the
waiting.
evaluation is going to take place tomorrow. So we wait and see on that front there. I've heard mixed. I've heard they got him out in time. They feel positive. And then I've heard that it's not looking good right now. So we just got to wait on that. The interesting one is Di Maria, too, that apparently after the World Cup, if things aren't really smooth or whatnot, and there's no Champions League, he might head to Argentina sooner and take off in January.
Yeah,
He's
that was
on
kind of a
track.
random one.
Not credible sources, 2 or 3 sources, none of them credible. But again, who really knows anymore? Who really knows anymore? Some wild stuff coming out over the past couple of days. Again, we just lay it out. You take everything, even when it is from the credible sources, with a grain of salt. But those are a couple of the things rolling around. We talked about the Bonucci one. That's the latest. The Di Maria one, that's odd. We got the injury statuses covered. And then, of course, we got to wait for Bremer. Lou?
Real quick, I think for the news this week, it'll be big to follow Chiesa's storyline this week. He may get a friendly at some point this week. It's been kind of nobody really knows that's happening, but in the lieu of Empoli, that'll be a big one to follow the news. And we could get a Pogba training with the group this week. So, guys, follow the news. If you feel inclined, hit the notifications button on Twitter so you don't miss any of them. And Omar and I will do our best to tackle them.
Absolutely. And you guys got to make sure you're subscribed on or following on Twitter as well. Again, all subscribers, you guys know what's coming, right? Unveiled at the watch along tomorrow. This is the next one. Okay. Absolute fire. Had to put the man on the back. So it pays to subscribe, and everybody, hey, share the content too. Let's keep growing the AJC army. The table, I'm going to leave you with the table. Without Napoli, Milan, and Roma playing their 10th matches yet, Juventus sit in 8th in the table with 16 points. Just ahead of them is Inter at 18, Roma 6th at 19, AC in 5th with 20. Obviously, Milan and Roma have games to play. Lazio Udinese at 21. So, again, it was a big one yesterday. We've got the next one, Empoli, which will be on the 21st, I believe. Don't hold me to that. 21st, Juve, Empoli. I'll be there. We'll do a match day live for there. Leading up to that, I'll have all your daily update videos here on YouTube. Omar, Lou, thanks again. Everybody in the live, Great stuff. All right. And we'll talk to you all soon. As always, fino alla fine, Forza Juve. Enjoy the rest of your weekends. And I'll see you tomorrow morning for the daily update video. Ciao tutti.